She once ruled the courtroom like a queen, her voice slicing through lies with the force of a gavel strike. For over 20 years, she reigned as America's most feared and respected TV judge, turning her sharp tongue and unshakable authority into an empire worth hundreds of millions. But away from the cameras, life was far from the perfect picture. Behind the robe and the glare, she was waging private battles, against ruthless television executives, an unforgiving public ready to pounce on any flaw, and deep fractures within her own family. What seemed like unshakable power was hiding a far more fragile reality. What could possibly shake the marriage of a woman who seemed unshakable? What sudden health crisis was so severe it brought her entire show to a standstill? At 82, the life of Judge Judy looks nothing like the indestructible image she spent decades building, and the cracks are finally starting to show. Her rise began in 1972, when a sharp-tongued, no-nonsense prosecutor stepped into Manhattan's family court and instantly commanded the room. She didn't need to raise her voice, her piercing words and unwavering presence cut straight through every excuse. In an era when female prosecutors were rare, especially in the gritty, male-dominated courts of New York City, Judith Sheindlin was a force no one dared underestimate. After earning her law degree from New York Law School in 1965, Judy stepped away to raise her 2 children, but by 1972 she was back, more determined than ever. Walking into family court wasn't just a job, it was a mission. Every case she touched carried the weight of her relentless pursuit of justice. Her style was unapologetic, her judgments swift, and her reputation spread quickly. It was here, in the pressure cooker world of New York's toughest courtrooms, that the legend of Judge Judy began to take shape. Judy chose family law not for prestige or headlines, but because it was raw, human, and painfully real. These weren't tidy corporate disputes or high-profile criminal trials, this was the front line of broken homes, neglected children, and desperate parents clinging to second chances. Every day brought cases that could haunt her long after the gavel fell. The courtroom was often loud, messy, and emotionally charged, but Judy thrived in the chaos. She had no patience for excuses, no time for flowery legal jargon, and absolutely no fear of challenging authority. To her, justice had to be swift, clear, and above all, fair, and she delivered it without hesitation. Her uncompromising style made her impossible to ignore. Lawyers, clerks, and even opposing counsel began to recognize the sharp precision in her questioning and the unwavering confidence in her verdicts. By 1982, her impact was undeniable. Those in power had taken notice, and Judy was appointed as a judge in New York's family court, a promotion that would set her on the path from a fearless prosecutor to one of the most recognized and influential figures in American legal history. In an era when the majority of judges were predominantly white men dressed in conservative attire, Judy was already challenging the status quo. She donned her black robe, yet beneath it was the same straightforward, no-nonsense woman who held the belief that accountability is the cornerstone of justice. She wasn't hesitant to call out lawyers, social workers, or even defendants if they failed to perform their duties adequately. This earned her both fear and respect in courtrooms throughout the city. Her ascension to supervising judge in 1986 was a result of her effectiveness. Her docket progressed more swiftly than most, her rulings were regularly upheld, and she urged her staff to meet her high expectations. To her, family court was not about who had the better legal representation. It was about safeguarding children and providing struggling families with clear answers, rather than more delays. Nevertheless, Judy was merely one judge among many. Her name didn't make headlines, and she wasn't featured on television. That changed in 1993 when a reporter from the Los Angeles Times discovered her distinctive courtroom approach and penned a profile that characterized her as a tough-talking family court judge who had no patience for foolishness. This article piqued the interest of the producers at 60 Minutes, and soon CBS had a camera crew capturing her in action. This segment transformed everything, allowing millions to witness what those within New York's legal community had recognized for years. Judy was not only intelligent but also captivating. Television executives quickly recognized the opportunity. While court shows had existed prior, they were largely fictional or overly produced. What Judy brought to the table were authentic cases, genuine litigants, and a real judge who had no time for nonsense. Thus, in 1996, Judge Judy debuted in syndication, airing on daytime television nationwide. The format was straightforward: small claims cases, minor disputes, and a sharp-tongued judge who always got straight to the point. However, people were unable to stop observing. Judge Judy rose to the top of television's courtroom ratings in a few years. More significantly, though, it altered the purpose and methodology of court shows. Judy addressed the audience directly, using common sense and straightforward language rather than a legal filter. She didn't hesitate to expose blatant lies, careless parenting, or reckless choices. Pop culture adopted her catchphrases, such as, "Don't pee on my leg, it's raining," and, "If it doesn't make sense, it's not true." And she continued to be quick, precise, and decisive. Judge Judy led daytime ratings for 25 years in a row. It was a phenomenon rather than merely a hit. It won 3 daytime Emmys and attracted millions of viewers each day. She was awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2006. Judy continued to film in the same plain courtroom setting, with the same format, and with the same outcomes, despite her pay skyrocketing to a record-breaking $47 million annually. Her accomplishment off-screen changed the perception of women in law, particularly on television. She wasn't a supporting character or a sidekick. Even when the TV landscape shifted and newer, more flamboyant shows arrived and went, she remained in charge. She had presided over 12,500 cases by the time the last episode aired in 2021. She was now a symbol rather than just a famous judge. Although she was becoming more successful in court, most people were unaware that her personal life was falling apart at an equally rapid pace. Her marriage crisis and romantic life. Few people could match Judy Shinlin's legal reputation, but her personal life was much more convoluted and out of her control. Judy was a young mother attempting to strike a balance between ambition and expectations prior to the television offers and multi-million-dollar contracts. She married Ronald Levy in 1964, a lawyer who, on the surface, appeared to share her ambition. Together, they had 2 kids and led what many would consider a traditional existence. However, there was a developing separation behind that regularity. Ronald desired that Judy adopt a more conventional role, prioritizing her function as a homemaker over her role as an attorney. But for her, that was never going to work. In a courtroom full of men who thought she was the assistant, she had fought for too long to win her spot. She wasn't prepared to give that up in order to appease someone else's ego. As the gap between them silently grew, she continued to advance in her legal career. The marriage had fallen apart by 1976, although there were no big public arguments or tabloid controversies. Judy had a clear understanding of why it ended. She refused to compromise in order to keep the marriage intact, and he didn't encourage her to grow. Shortly thereafter, she met Jerry Shindlin, a judge and writer who shared her bold attitude and a keen legal intellect. They got married in 1977 after a quick and passionate connection. It appeared to be the ideal combination on paper. They both shared a common concept of what it meant to carry professional pressure, had strong beliefs, and had experience in the courts. However, compatibility was insufficient to shield them from the next step. Judy started experiencing emotional difficulties in 1990 after losing her father, Murray Bloom, whom she referred to as her idol. His passing dealt a devastating emotional blow. Additionally, Judy, who had always taken pleasure in her strength and clarity, was caught in a sorrow storm that she was unable to cope with. She required consolation in someone to carry her, even for a short time, as she had done for years. As direct as ever, Jerry didn't fill that position as she had intended, and instead she felt isolated. Jerry described the pivotal moment in an interview, adding, "She told me that I would divorce you if you couldn't handle this. I said, 'Oh yeah, I dare you.' The following day, I received divorce papers." Thus, that concluded the matter. Everyone who knew them was taken aback. They had always seemed to be a good fit, even with their jagged edges. Emotional uncertainty, however, did not appeal to Judy. She took decisive action when things failed. And at that point, she thought the marriage was over. But after the dust settles, life has a way of making room for clarity. Something surprising occurred in the months after their breakup. They missed one another because they understood that the essence of their relationship had not diminished, not because they were lonely or out of habit. Later, Judy remarked, "I missed him, but I like being married." In his own words, Jerry acknowledged that no one could ever compare to her. "It was the first time in years that we didn't get to see each other every day, and I missed her presence the first week that we were apart," he added. By 1991, a year after their divorce, they had discreetly gotten back together and remarried. In many ways, Judy's marriages reflected her courtroom presence. She didn't tolerate disrespect, she expected accountability, and she always made decisions with a clear mind. Since then, they have stayed married, frequently making fun of each other in interviews, but never downplaying the years of work it took to stay together. However, love wasn't about verdicts like a court case. No matter how well the marriage was patched up, time doesn't wait for anyone, and their bond would soon be put to the test in a very different way that had nothing to do with arguments or ultimatums. It was about making the decision to continue showing up even after the structure breaks. Judy and Jerry had both learned that the hard way. The health scare that changed everything in 2011, Judy's speech slowed as if she had been switched to slow motion while filming a case. This was a sudden and terrifying change that stopped production cold for a woman known for her lightning-fast delivery and razor-sharp focus. Everyone in the studio knew something was seriously wrong when her voice dragged, her face appeared dazed, and her usual spark vanished in an instant. The producers didn't hesitate and immediately stopped filming and dialed 911. The ambulance swiftly arrived and took her to the hospital, where the doctors determined that she had suffered a temporary ischemic attack, commonly known as a minstroke. Judy had been lucky, but she also knew that luck wasn't a strategy. It's a temporary blockage of blood flow to the brain, and while the symptoms may go away in a matter of minutes, the warning it sends is deadly serious. A transient ischemic attack doesn't just fade and get forgotten, it means something bigger could be coming if nothing changes. The experience shook Judy, and she later talked about it, describing it as a good lesson. She didn't downplay or dramatize it because, to her, it was just a wake-up call that even the strongest bodies have limits, and hers had just sent her a warning. Fortunately, she didn't need rehab, and there was no lengthy recovery process, but her speech was back to normal after a while in the hospital. She started exercising every day, following regimens that prioritized heart health and balance, eating a healthier diet that included more fresh, unprocessed foods, staying active outside of court, and, most importantly, starting to take Plavix, a drug that lowers the risk of future strokes and helps prevent blood clots. She didn't miss a beat at work. Taping resumed, and Judge Judy's run went on without any public disruption. Her days were more carefully managed, and she had time to rest. Most fans didn't even know the episode existed, which was exactly how she wanted it to be, private, controlled, and behind her. In spite of the health scare and her disciplined response, it would soon become evident that not all storms come from within, some come from those around you, and even the most discerning judge could not stop the criticism that was about to hit her. And that alone was a significant change for someone who made a living by doing everything faster than anyone else. The controversial side of Judge Judy. For more than 25 years, Judy Shinlin became one of the highest-paid TV hosts. The show attracted millions of people every day, and it dominated daytime television with virtually no competition. The trouble started when CBS made a business decision that Judy felt crossed a personal line. Rather than continuing with new episodes of Judge Judy, CBS paid an astounding $99 million for the rights to air reruns. To outsiders, this would have been a natural end to a long-running show, but to Judy, it was anything but. In 2021, after a quarter-century at the top, CBS decided to end the show. In Judy's opinion, that move was a betrayal because it effectively put a stop to production, even though she was prepared and willing to continue. At the same time, CBS quietly sidelined another courtroom show she had helped create, Hot Bench, a panel-style format with 3 judges that she personally developed and produced. In an interview, she stated, "You disrespected my creation, and you were wrong." It was not merely a shift in programming, it was a blatant indication that the network no longer valued what she had created. "Not only did you disrespect my work, but you also gambled with what you replaced it." Judy had dedicated her entire career to making choices, establishing norms, and making decisions, so losing airtime wasn't the only thing at stake. Although CBS never presented it as a conflict, Judy made it clear that she wasn't keeping quiet. Having her show shut down in favor of reruns and Hot Bench minimized felt like more than just a business decision, it felt like a conscious attempt to remove her influence from the network she had helped elevate. She left the network, started a new show called Judy Justice on Amazon's Freevee platform, and continued to do what she did best. However, as she got comfortable with her next role, more challenging headlines started to appear, and this time they weren't from network politics, rather, they came from people close to her. It started with rumors of a toxic work environment behind the scenes of Judge Judy, which former staff members started to share with media outlets. However, the rumors persisted, becoming louder and more difficult to ignore, with much of the controversy focusing on Judge Judy's longtime executive producer, Randy Duth, who was accused by former employees of fostering a hostile work environment characterized by inappropriate behavior, discrimination, and intimidation. In addition to the harassment allegations, several former employees said the casting process for litigants had long been tainted by racial bias. The most serious claims came from producer Courtney Bulick, who filed a lawsuit alleging harassment, claiming that Duth had created a culture where inappropriate comments were brushed off and that her complaints were ignored or dismissed, causing her to be sidelined and eventually forced out after speaking up. Other allegations were less well known but equally damaging. They claimed that producers were told to downplay cases involving people of color or to avoid scheduling too many black litigants in a single episode. These were not just uncomfortable stories, they were explosive, especially considering the show's long-standing reputation as a show about justice and fairness. Several former crew members described the atmosphere as one where being extra cautious was part of the job and retaliation was always a possibility if someone spoke out. The accusations painted a very different picture from the tightly controlled courtroom viewers saw on screen, and the big question became how much Judy knew. According to reports, some senior staff, including Duthett, had been known to drink on set or denigrate junior employees. Critics said that her silence on the deeper systemic issues, particularly those involving race and gender, felt contradictory for someone who built a career on accountability, but she continued to publicly support Duth, calling him a brilliant producer and a key part of the show's success, while defending the overall integrity of her team, saying that she surrounded herself with devoted professionals and trusted them to do their jobs. Judy was never named in the lawsuits, but the damage to her reputation was real, and for some fans, it was the first time they had ever doubted the fairness of the judge they had trusted for decades. They pointed out that, as the face of the show, Judy was responsible not only for the decisions made on air but also for the atmosphere behind the scenes. For others, it sparked more general concerns about how power functions covertly in television and who is shielded when complaints are made. Nevertheless, Judy didn't dwell on the criticism. She continued to film Judy Justice, moved on, and made little public remarks about the accusations after that. However, the stories persisted online in court documents and in the recollections of former cast members, and despite Judy's efforts to move on, the specters of her past scandals were difficult to dispel. Even prior to the last seasons of Judge Judy, criticism of Judy Schindlin's handling of some cases had begun to mount. Some people began to perceive what was once perceived as refreshing bluntness as bullying, and one case in particular marked a shift in the way that critics and audiences began to perceive her courtroom style. In what became known online as the herpes case, Judy granted $5,000 to a woman who claimed that her ex-boyfriend had intentionally caused her to contract a disease. Although the decision was final on the show, it appeared careless in retrospect, and the backlash was immediate. The case began as a typical small claims drama, with a swift and decisive ruling, but shortly after the episode aired, new information surfaced that directly contradicted the decision, and the man accused later presented medical evidence proving he had no herpes at all. The payout was small by legal standards, but the harm to the man's reputation was far more severe, and the mistake felt glaring for a courtroom show that prided itself on facts and finality. Critics said Judy had made a snap decision without enough evidence and had publicly shamed someone based only on testimony and emotion. But the criticism didn't end with that one case. Over the years, some viewers noticed a pattern: litigants who had trouble expressing themselves, those who spoke broken English, those who had no formal education, or those who didn't understand legal jargon were frequently met with impatience and sarcasm. It also made viewers uncomfortable to wonder how many other rulings had been made in that manner. What made Judy popular in some circles made her intolerable to others, as social media and legal blogs began to speculate about what they perceived as classism in her courtroom tone. Judy was known for interrupting people in the middle of sentences, reprimanding them for not staying on topic, or making fun of what she perceived as bad life choices. Poor defendants, particularly those who arrived in a messy situation, were frequently written off as careless or lazy. According to these reports, litigants who struggled with complicated paperwork or couldn't afford attorneys occasionally ended up losing their cases and being humiliated in front of millions of viewers. As the world changed and discussions about poverty, mental health, and systemic inequality gained momentum, Judy's brand of bluntness began to feel out of date to a more socially conscious audience. She had always stated that her goal was to teach people personal responsibility, and for many years that message resonated. Critics said she was no longer just tough on bad behavior. The controversy didn't end there, though, as Judy Justice's streaming comeback began with a splash, but one casting decision quickly turned into a lightning rod. Judy's granddaughter, Sarah Rose, was brought in as the show's clerk, a move that was framed as a passing of the torch. She was tone-deaf to the real-world difficulties that many litigants faced. Sarah had attended law school, looked up to her grandmother, and was carrying on the courtroom tradition, but the response was, at best, mixed on the internet, with many fans accusing Judy of being blatantly nepotism, Sarah never having been a member of the Judge Judy team, and viewers questioning whether she had the presence or experience to play such a prominent role. The criticism grew when episodes aired, with others pointing out that although Judy had a long history of mentoring shrewd, capable women in TV courtrooms, this time it appeared to be more of a family favor than a professional decision, and that Sarah, while courteous and articulate, lacked the enthusiasm of Judy's longtime bailiff, Petrie Hawkins Bird, who had been with her since the 1996 debut. These moments didn't derail Judy Justice, but they did erode the untouchable image she had built up over decades. Fans noticed Bird's absence right away, and many were upset that he hadn't been invited to join the new show at all. He later publicly revealed that he was never even asked to audition the show, adding fuel to the accusations that Judy was more about personal loyalty than professional merit. While she remained production-focused and continued to record new episodes, she didn't directly address most of the criticism. However, outside the set, the discourse had changed, with people asking whether the values her courtroom promoted were still applicable in today's cultural context rather than merely discussing her decisions. It seemed for a while that Judy Sheindlin had vanished. No more courtroom videos went viral, no more daily broadcasts, but she had simply changed her path, and now, well into her 80s, she is still producing, working, and determined to change the way that justice is perceived, even if fewer people are listening. Wherein is Judge Judy now? Although she's now not on TV every afternoon like clockwork, Judy Sheindlin nevertheless hasn't diminished into quiet retirement. In truth, she still suggests up at public occasions, regularly looking sharper and greater prepared than human beings half her age. Simply months in the past, she turned into noticed at a high-profile luncheon wherein she became introduced via Samuel L. Jackson. Observers noted her perfectly styled hair, signature tailored outfit, and the unmistakable presence she's usually carried. Physically, Judy nonetheless seems strong. While her voice may additionally bring a piece greater age than it used to, the electricity in the back of her eyes hasn't long passed anywhere. She's no longer trying to appearance more youthful. She's without a doubt making it clear that age has never defined her pace. While she's no longer operating, she splits her time between numerous lovely homes. Her primary house is a huge roughly $9 million property in Newport, Rhode Island. The mansion perched alongside the shoreline capabilities, sprawling gardens, ocean perspectives, and the sort of quiet privacy few public figures can have enough money. She also owns a 17,000 cu-feet property in Greenwich, Connecticut, a place she's had for years and reportedly makes use of as a greater non-public circle of relatives retreat. The assets is classic East Coast luxury. Understated from the out-of-doors, opulent at the inner, and surrounded via the type of manicured grounds that nearly whisper old cash. She lately bought her Big Apple Town penthouse, a sleek excessive-rise home that once gave her direct get-right of entry to the middle of Big Apple. It changed into a sign of transferring priorities. Judy no longer desires to be in the city complete time. Professionally, Judy has moved right into a unique type of TV. Her modern show, Justice on Trial, launched on Top Video in 2025. It is not a courtroom arbitration show. Alternatively, it's a true crime docu-series that appears returned on ancient criminal cases and re-examines them with a modern-day lens. Each episode recreates trials that captivated or stressed the public, consisting of notorious instances like the Menendez brothers and the Scopes monkey trial. The layout blends actual trial transcripts with dramatized scenes, making it greater narrative-driven than something Judy has completed before. She would not act as a real-world judge issuing rulings. Alternatively, she performs a lower court decide in reenacted scenes while members of her tribunal justice crew function the appeals panel. It is element scripted, element evaluation, but the message in the back of its miles extreme. The show challenges the idea that the justice system constantly works the manner it need to. It asks visitors to remember whether or not the law has constantly been implemented fairly or whether once in a while the wrong people grow to be paying the rate. Judy would not lecture visitors or deliver very last verdicts. As a substitute, she participates in dramatized court docket scenes that reflect unique eras, complete with converting gowns, hairstyles, or even the unique robe she wore throughout her early years on television. Although the trademark lace collar has been removed, these visual shifts assist shipping the audience into on every occasion length while nevertheless centering the message. Justice is not always black and white. There's a reason to the project that is going beyond ratings. Judy says she hopes the display leaves viewers a little smarter, a bit extra skeptical, and loads more conscious that even judges can get it incorrect. For a person who spent many years being the final authority on television, that admission is tremendous. Nonetheless, this new section of her career hasn't drawn the type of media interest she's used to. Justice on Trial airs on Prime Video, a platform that goals niche audiences, now not daytime television's extensive demographic. And Judy Justice airing on Amazon Freevee has also flown beneath the radar for most viewers who are not actively in search of it out. There are not billboards or viral promo clips flooding human beings as feeds. Judy's presence in pop culture has dimmed, not because she's faded, but because she's now operating in an extraordinary media panorama. She seems to pick at that manner. Her day-by-day existence is quieter now, however a ways from idle. She has no interest in golfing or hobbies that maintain her nonetheless. She flourishes on productiveness and shape. And whilst she would not tape 5 days per week anymore, she's nonetheless reviewing scripts, notes, and edits. What's modified maximum isn't always her work ethic, it is her reach. In her top, she spoke to tens of millions every week. Nowadays, her suggests talk to 3 million. On occasion much less on streaming platforms. Her fan base has narrowed. Her cultural visibility has dipped and younger audiences often do not recognize her name except they have heard approximately her from a parent or grandparent. She's aware about the generational divide. She's additionally conscious that point would not pause no matter how powerful you're. Judy Schindlin might not be a staple of daytime television anymore, and she or he can also never return to the height visibility she as soon as enjoyed, however she's nevertheless deciding on what she does, how she does it, and who she stocks it with. Would you like to peer Judy make a comeback on TV? Drop your answers inside the comments segment beneath. If you loved this video, remember to click on the next video on your display screen, like this video, and enroll in our channel for greater updates.